I'm back, and for those of you who have been following, I apologize. I'm going to offer my comments one more time, but seeing as how we've been having this argument about women's reproductive rights for years and years, it doesn't seem to hurt to do it again. So good afternoon. My name is Dr. Colleen McNicholas. I am a practicing OBGYN in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm here today as a physician to express my deep disappointment in our legislative body. Yesterday, the Senate passed the 72-hour waiting bill along strict party lines that, if enacted, would require women requesting abortion to wait 3 medically unnecessary, that's right, medically unnecessary days before they can access the safe and legal medical care they seek. Not only are our elected officials grossly underqualified to legislate medical practice, they clearly have decided their ideological crusade against women's reproductive health is more important than the real-life implications of this crusade felt by their constituents. As a physician who cares for these women, I can tell you that unnecessary delays such as this do nothing to improve their care. In fact, exactly the opposite is true. More women will access care later in pregnancy. More women will resort to unsafe methods of pregnancy termination. I'm fortunate to say that I have not had to experience the days pre-Roe, but I have spoken to many physicians who have. And I fear that with this and other legislation like it, their horrifying stories of hospital wards filled with women dying from self-induced abortion will become a reality yet again. Although those supporting this legislation would like you to believe that this may seem extreme, we have already seen women trying to purchase unregulated medications online in an effort to end their own pregnancy. With only one freestanding abortion clinic remaining, the average patient is traveling nearly 100 miles to access care, and nearly 1 in 10 travel more than 300 miles. In nearly every other field of medicine, this is termed medically underserved, universally viewed as unacceptable, and raised to the attention of medical experts with the goal of improving access. Further reducing access, as this bill would inevitably do, only further burdens women seeking this care. By tripling the delay, women who are traveling from far distances are now faced with multiple lengthy trips, each of which requires additional childcare, financial security, safe transportation, and potentially out-of-town lodging. It's curious to me that legislators are only interested in improving the safety of abortion, one of the safest medical procedures performed each year, with this onslaught of regulations, and no attention to other procedures that carry much higher morbidity and mortality. Why aren't we requiring patients to wait a legislatively prescribed number of days before their hysterectomy, or their vasectomy, or their hip replacement? Among the most troubling consequences of this type of legislation is the message that women aren't capable of carefully considering this very important decision. In all of the women I have taken care of, I can assure you that not one of them has come to me without having considered the importance and implications of their decision. I can also assure you that despite having cared for hundreds of women facing this decision, not one of them is the same. I cannot and would never assume to know the individual social, economic, family, and emotional world that a woman must navigate in order to make this decision. This patriarchal assumption that women who ultimately choose a different decision than you might, facing the same choice, and that all they must need is just a little more time to consider, feels insulting to me as a woman, as a mother, and as a physician. When I consider the impact that this could have on our patients that we have already taken care of, I'm struck by just how far-reaching the consequences are. I think about my patient Amy and her husband. Amy has documented her story for me and has given me permission to share it with you now. She says, "The moment that my husband and I found out that I was pregnant, we were thrilled. I never knew for sure what I wanted to be when I grew up, but I knew that being a mommy was always a given. I was apprehensive to get excited about my pregnancy because I had heard so many tragic stories of loss, and I didn't want to assume that everything was going to go as planned. Little did I know, I was right to doubt my own luck. My husband took off work for our 20-week ultrasound. We were finally going to find out if our baby was a little boy or girl. We were both so excited and had been waiting for this day ever since we found out that we were expecting. Due to a risk of gastroschisis, we needed to teleconference with a doctor in St. Louis. The ultrasound tech took numerous pictures throughout the ultrasound to send to the doctor. The time finally came to know the gender. We were having a baby boy. The tech then left the room for a short while to send the pictures electronically to the doctor in St. Louis. And my husband and I immediately started discussing boy names. The time came for the doctor to look over the pictures. We waited patiently for him and the ultrasound tech to go through each photo and discuss the measurements of our baby boy. The plan had originally been to meet with my local OBGYN following the ultrasound to talk about what had been seen. However, my local doctor was in labor and delivery with another patient, so we met with his nurse. She asked if there was any way that I could travel to St. Louis to see the high-risk OB doctor in person. He said the ultrasound pictures he received were blurry and they wanted to do another scan. We agreed that I would go to St. Louis the next night and stay with my mom. The next morning, I went to see that doctor on my own. Armed with little information, I hadn't realized at the time that going to this appointment alone would prove to be the biggest mistake. After just a short period of waiting, I was called into the genetic counselor's office. She started the conversation with, "Let's start with the head and work our way down," referring to all of the concerns with our baby's body. His brain was underdeveloped, his skull was abnormally shaped, he had a cleft lip and most likely palate, his heart was located in the middle of his chest at a dangerous angle. He had a single umbilical artery and an incomplete spine. I stared at the genetic counselor in disbelief as she went through the laundry list of what was wrong with my baby boy. The new ultrasound confirmed all of the doctor's concerns. The next step was to take a sample of the amniotic fluid through an amniocentesis to check for chromosomal abnormalities. I agreed right away. I knew that we needed some answers. The next day, we received the results of the amnio. Our little boy was suffering from an abnormality called trisomy 13. Unfortunately, the screening test they performed at 10 weeks gestation to assess the odds of Down syndrome and trisomy 18 did not include screening for this abnormality. When the egg and sperm joined, an extra copy of the 13th chromosome was created. The fatal consequences we previously learned about were a result of this. I was told the survival rate of this diagnosis is bleak. The majority of babies do not survive the pregnancy, and if the baby did make it to birth, he would likely live an average of 8 days. My husband and I had a lot of thinking to do and in a very little time. Our baby boy was currently 20 weeks and 5 days in gestation. And in the state of Missouri, we were told we would have to complete the procedure by 21 weeks and 6 days. We had to decide whether to make the heart-wrenching decision to let our baby boy go or to be forced to watch him to suffer, and all in just a week's time. Once the decision was made to part with our baby, we would have to wait yet another 24-hour period to comply with Missouri law. My husband and I made the difficult call to Planned Parenthood in St. Louis to set up an appointment for the procedure. We then were told we were required by state law to come in for a counseling session on Saturday, with the next available procedure appointment Tuesday. Had Missouri state law mandated a 72-hour wait rather than the current law, my husband and I would be currently waiting for a 3rd trimester miscarriage to occur, or to watch our boy suffer through his very short life. She says, "Please consider my story in regards to this potential change in state law. The decision to terminate my pregnancy was not something that my husband and I took lightly, nor was it a decision we wanted to make at all. Our son was very much loved by us and by our family. My mother was to be a first-time grandmother and was devastated by this medical predicament. The time period to my procedure was the most difficult of my life. Considering other experiences with my past, this statement should have significant meaning. Please be mindful in cases such as mine when changing a law that will affect all pregnant women and their families, regardless of their circumstance." I applaud Amy's bravery and candor, but the reality is she is not alone. For every woman willing to share her story, there are thousands more affected. I'm here today to speak for all of those unnamed women, for their partners and their families. I'm here as a woman and a mother to let you know that I am uninterested in you joining me for my next pelvic exam. And most of all, I'm here as a physician to say it's unacceptable for non-medically trained legislators to dictate the care of any individual. Thank you again, and sorry for the repeat. I'm going to be followed by somebody here in just a second.
Inquire of my fellow Missourian.
I yield the mic.
Hi, I'm Dr. Justin Dietrich. I'm an OBGYN in St. Louis. I'd like to applaud Dr. McNicholas for sharing the patient's story and for standing with us today in opposition to the 72-hour law. As a father, as a physician, as a brother, as a husband, this law doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense unless you think of it as being punitive, as being a way to punish women, as being a way to hurt them when they're in their most vulnerable state. Having to make a decision about ending a pregnancy is not something that anyone takes lightly. It's certainly not something that adding 3 days of waiting is going to help. When women come to see us, when women come to see their OBGYNs about continuing a pregnancy, or if they need to end it for whatever reason, they've thought about this. This is nothing that somebody just wakes up and decides. And so by the time they come to see us in our clinic, they've made up their mind. We talk about options, we talk about what the possibilities are. When people want to continue their pregnancy, we help them to do that in the safest way possible. When people want to end their pregnancy, we help them do that in a safe way. By adding 72 hours, it doesn't do anything that's going to help. It adds cost to people because they have to take off more work, they have to take off time from being with their families, they have to travel far distances. As Dr. McNicholas said, many of our patients have to travel over 300 miles to get to our clinic. It's something, by doing this law, you're not doing anything that's going to help improve safety. You're making people wait longer, you are adding barriers, and you're making it more difficult to get care. By taking people that are marginalized, by making care more difficult and more costly, all it does is prevent people from getting what they need, from getting the help that they need. By enacting the 72-hour law, you're putting restrictions, and you're putting yourself as legislators, as the governor, you're putting yourself in the exam room. That's not somewhere that you need to be. You should be here on Capitol Hill. You should be here helping the people of the state. By being in the exam room with us, you're becoming a doctor. You haven't been trained for that, and it's not anything that's going to help us to provide care to our patients, help us to deliver their babies, help us to treat them throughout their lives, help us by giving us the support that we need, by giving women the support they need. Trust women.
My fellow Missourian, may I inquire of you?
I yield the microphone.